Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the In the 11 podcast. I'm your host, Brendan Griffiths, and this is the show where we bring on those from the world of football to show you what it takes to be in the 11 at the highest possible level. Going into the holidays here and wrapping up 2022, I've got a little special surprise for you, highlighting all of the episodes that we recorded in 2022. I think there was 35, 36 maybe episodes that we recorded this year. Tons of content, tons of guests, players of all different levels. And it was really an amazing experience interviewing all those people and sharing their stories with you. So I wanted to take this time as we go into the end of the year to just call back to some of those episodes, some of those really interesting guests that we had on, and share their stories once again with some of the highlights, little tidbits that really resonated with all of you. So I will kick it over to the first half, because this might be a part two or maybe even 3 parts of this, because there's a lot of content to get through. This is going to be part 1 of the 2022 recap. Enjoy.
Oh my gosh. So it's funny, Brendan, that you mentioned this. My life from as a volunteer assistant college coach, as well as trying to make a living, there was, I think it was during the off season. So anywhere from, January to, let's say, March, April time period was the most hectic time in my life, and was the grind, like you said, was real.
Yep.
My daily Monday through Friday was basically looking like this. I would wake up at, let's say, 4:30 in the morning. I would have to be at Siena for 6 a.m. practice. Have 6 a.m. to around 7:30 in the morning practice, hang out with the staff, do whatever we needed to do. And then I would go home probably around 11, 12 o'clock. Mainly because I was a volunteer, so they couldn't really control all my hours in the off season and everything like that. Go home for a couple hours, and then my work day essentially would start at 3:30. I would do a private session from 3:30 to 4:30 with, I coached at the time with Alley Cats, so I was an Alley Cats trainer, I was an Alley Cats coach. And I also worked behind the desk at Afram Sports. So I would go 3:30 to 4:30 private session. 4:30 to 5:45 was the first academy session. 5:45 to 7 o'clock was the second academy session. They were paying me, I think at the time it was $60 to do the hour and 15-minute session. So it was pretty decent money that I relied on. From 7 o'clock to 8:15, I would coach my team. So I had 2 teams in the club. One was a girls team that trained on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The other one was a boys team from Monday and Wednesday. So from 7 to 8:15, I would coach that session. And then at the end of it, either at the Colony facility or at the Latham Dome over at Aframs, I would jump behind the desk, and I would, take people's money and, serve concession stand. I would, every once in a while serve beer to the guys behind there for the adult leagues at night. And so basically from 8:15 until whenever I was released, which was usually around, midnight or at the latest 1 o'clock in the morning, go home, sleep for a couple hours, wake up again at 5 a.m. and be at Siena for 6 a.m. training. So that was, probably the most the most hectic, the craziest part about my life. But, as a youth soccer coach, it's something that every coach needs to go through that grind, go through that way of, making a living while at the same time, loving what you're doing. And, for me, it was really tough, but it's definitely, a huge moment in my career that, I don't regret, because I learned so much during that those crazy few months. And
I think it's everything. I think anytime I get a little too this is not good enough, blah blah blah, I kind of think back to those times. But I think the big thing that I learned then was, first, you can't really worry too much about like the outside, because for instance, I was the first player drafted in MLS by Binghamton, right? Yep. From Binghamton drafted in MLS, so I'm getting a lot of an attention from that. And for the first, whatever it was, like 8 months after the draft, I wasn't signed. I was trialing with places. So you kind of feel like almost a little bit embarrassed, like almost like a fraud a bit. Like you're like, all right, am I even a pro? Which technically I wasn't at the time. I didn't have a contract. So, but then people kind of assume you are because you were drafted, and how American sports work is if you're drafted, you're a pro. Like that's kind of how it works. So like that period of my career was kind of like, I had to stop. Like you couldn't worry at all about the other stuff and just worry about, all right, how can I best progress my career forward? How can I find an opportunity somewhere? I mean, like I went on an odyssey. It was like Haifa to Austria. Then I came back to the US with Harrisburg and the Cosmos, and they all said no. Then I went back to Austria with Lustenau, and then also a third division team. And the third division team wanted me. It was the first team that was like, which is third division in Austria is a pretty good level. Like you can make good money. Like guys, some work part-time jobs, but some don't. But like the level was good. I was happy with it. But then because like the agent didn't realize that the third division, there was a different deadline for foreigners, like a different transfer deadline. So I couldn't sign there. So then I was like, all right, what am I going to do? And sure enough, friend got me involved in Germany. I mean, it's just whatever, 3-4 hour train ride that I took. And there were two teams. It was Darmstadt, obviously, and then it was TSG Usingen, both in the 6th tier, the Verbandsliga. Actually, it was in the same league, so I ended up playing against Usingen. And I went to Darmstadt first. They were initially like, yes, absolutely, let's go. And then Usingen was also interested, but Darmstadt just seemed like they were more interested. They were going to give us housing and everything. So I went there. There was one other American there at the time. So that just seemed like the right call. And that's kind of like that. But that whole 8 months was all building up to this 6th division team that was probably on par with my college team, which was not even that good of a team. The PDL was probably a slightly higher level. So it's like this whole thing is like you're building up. You're like, all right, MLS, no. Maccabi Haifa, no. And then you're like, all right, Austria Lustenau, which was 2nd division in Austria, which is, again, Erste League is like fully professional, very good league. They're like, maybe, because that was more, at that time, I was like, I think I could play this level. But there were only about 5 foreigners, and they said no. And then you're like working down, you're like, all right, 3rd division Austria. They say yes, but it doesn't work out. And you're just like slowly working your way down until finally something works out.
I was scared. I didn't know. And looking back on it, that was one of the most inspiring moments of this podcast was after posting that episode and seeing how many people that I thought would question it just reach out to me and say, hey, like, I don't know what you're going through, but I can understand, I can sympathize with you, and I can support your decision. And no one was angry or upset with me, or at least that showed it. So it hasn't always been where, from start to finish, where I've loved every second of the podcast. Like I said, it's been daunting for me at times. I've been almost afraid of it. I've almost been afraid of the audience that I've now created, because I branded myself as this guy who was, as my former coach said to me, he said, you kind of portrayed yourself as this grind mode guy, and that's all you were. And that's not who I am. It certainly can be an element of who I am, that I know how to work hard, and I know how to grind and sacrifice for things that I want, but it's not the whole picture. It's not everything about me. And to change that brand and change that persona kind of on a dime was necessary, but it was a big risk. I didn't know how it would be perceived. And here we are, still people are listening, still people are enjoying it. So I guess it paid off.
But at the same time, still considering my options in the USL, I think something this therapist I work with told me was that, like, no matter what age you leave it, and no matter like what you've done, like even if I played in the Prem, scored goals, Champions League, World Cup, like the day you have to leave the sport, you're always going to miss it. And I was like, that's so true. So I've been trying to balance thinking about retirement and then also thinking about still playing. So I've very much been considering my options this offseason. But, my trainings usually look like I actually have a trainer in Phoenix who I've been working with. His name is Noel Castillo. He's a very good trainer. I really like what he does. Focus a lot on the technical, but also, scanning and also just little details that I think are very important. Won't get into too much detail, give away his secrets. But yeah, I'll usually work with him and my friend Ryan or my friend Lalo, my friend Noah from Phoenix, and just do the little things every single day.
As someone who has, I know you mentioned earlier on in your career that there was a life coach that you would speak to, speaking to maybe a therapist now at this point in your career as well. How important has that been for you, kind of taking care of the mental side of the game for yourself? Because I think it's something that is talked about a bit more now in the game that maybe it wasn't in the past. But can you speak to that at all, how helpful it's been for you, and what your experience has been like with it?
Of course. I think for me, it's absolutely critical. I think in general in the game of soccer, well, probably in any sport, it's just like there are such minute little details and differences that go from that take you from, let's say, being in the USL to being in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Like not all of it is tactical, even though a lot of it is. But, I think I remember one of my coaches in Denmark, he played for like a lower team in Denmark. He scored like one goal. I think he scored a bicycle kick. And it took him from like playing in Denmark to playing in Italy. So I think there's such little details and such finite things that make a difference. And I think the mentality has been one thing for me that I've always wanted to work on, because I am more of a shy, timid person. I think I need to work on kind of putting myself out there in different ways so people kind of understand what I'm about and how I like to play and how I like to be, because I think it's a little different from other people. So I think mentality for me, and not even just like, I don't know, work ethic or anything, because that's not really my issue, but just putting myself out there in ways so people could see me better than they do, I think is the most important. So I think working with life coaches, working with therapists who really understand the game and understand the kind of the psychological aspects of being a player, being a different person, are very important.
If you could, just to elaborate it all, because, I'm sure we have lots of players who have played at pretty high levels that listen to this show and people who are fans of the game, but that representing your national team that's the elite of the elite, that's the highest level that there is in the world. And I'm sure there's no feeling like it to put on that jersey and have the flag and, hear your anthem and just everything. Can you put it into words what it's like to represent your team at the first team level?
I doubt I can put it into words or say it as eloquently as I'd like to say, but not just having the jersey on, but having it on in your home country with your fans supporting, having the anthem behind you, having your family may be at the stadium watching the game. I can't put words to what that feels like, but it's definitely a great feeling to be able to represent your country and play on their behalf, because it's not something that most players around the world get to experience. Yeah,
absolutely. Are there any other, I'm sure there's tons of highlights from playing with your national team. I know one you just mentioned too, when you're playing at Old Trafford and you're playing in the midfield with what was it, Gerrard, Lampard and Beckham all in your midfield. I'm sure that has to be up there on your top memories of as you look back at your career.
Definitely. But at the same time, as a player, you can't think of it as like, oh my gosh, I'm playing against all these guys, because then that's just not going to help your confidence. So what I used to help my confidence was just to say, look, they're just a player like you and I. They just may be on TV more and playing on a bigger club and making a lot more money, but they're still human. And are they bigger, faster, stronger than me? No. So then that was how I psyched myself up for games and didn't let the moments get the better of me. So it's like, look, we're all going to make a mistake. It happens. No one has 100% perfect game. You'll have a bad touch, a bad pass. Like, a mistake's going to happen. Fine. But don't get it twisted in your head that these players are X or whatever their names are, and they're way better than you. And I think that happens a lot when you have a lot of these bigger teams playing against these smaller teams, where they get overwhelmed by the name of a player. because they watched them on TV or use them in a video game many times. But I'd always bring people down to that, they're just an individual like everyone else.
Yeah. I signed as a striker, and it was like 5 games into the season already. It was right before the transfer window was about to close, so it was like late. And yeah, I don't know, it was crazy because it was signed there or go back to the US, and I was definitely wanting to stay and play in Thailand. And Thailand, I didn't find this out until later, but Thai League 1 is like probably the best league in Southeast Asia to play in. So if I could have broken into that straight away, that would have been like, massive. But playing in Thai League 3 was actually a really good it was a really good opportunity as well, and I enjoyed being with Chachoengsao for a full year. And it wasn't until I think about 7 games into the season they had 1 win and like 5 or 6 losses. And I had signed as a striker, and I was there. In Thailand, it's hard for them to like put full trust in you straight away, so that you have to like gain their trust. And as a striker, I was kind of like subbing in, or I would start, but like I would play okay, but I'm not scoring goals. And we were doing really bad. So it was 1 win and 5 or 6 losses. And then I told the owner, I was like, listen, I can play center back, because we were conceding so many goals.
Yeah.
And just ended up changing me to center back, and we just started climbing up the table from there, like started keeping clean sheets and started doing well. And they went from being like 13th out of 14 teams in the table to, I think we finished that season in like 6th or 7th place, so like kind of mid-table. And that's after 7 games played already, and we were like we had like 1 win at that point. So it was a good turnaround, and it just kind of showed like I guess my impact at center back, how I could like help the team keep clean sheets and be a lot better defensively. And it probably also showed that I'm not a striker professionally.
When Neymar goes to Brazil and then comes back, and Thiago Silva's interviewed about what you think about him when he came back from break, and he says everybody expected him to be overweight and to be slow because he's probably gone drinking. And then Thiago Silva says, but he came back to training and he was the best player in the world. And he was the best player on the pitch. It's like you couldn't touch him. You couldn't tackle him. You couldn't get near him, Yeah. And
I think I want to circle back to the point that you made about the journalist, right? I think that's important. And I think part of it is there's a generational divide, because I think part of it is, the likes of Roy Keane are never going to look at Neymar and understand or accept it, because he looks at football a very specific way. He looks at it as you show up, you do your job, you wear black boots, you tuck your jersey into your shorts, like you get a buzz cut haircut, nobody has tattoos, like all those types of things. And the reality is, I think that Neymar loves football and loves to compete and loves the game, but I think he also understands at the root what football is, which I think sometimes gets lost on people, and it's been lost on me before, I can admit it. Football is entertainment. Football is meant to entertain the masses, right? Like, the reality is, football is many people's life, and you feel like it is, if you feel like it's everything at certain points, but the reality is that it's put on TV, or it's put on that field for you to go and watch to entertain yourself. And so I think Neymar kind of looks at it a little bit like that. Like he says, I want to put on a show.
Yeah, I'm sure most footballers that aren't, Messi or, some like one of the best in the world have similar experiences. Everyone makes mistakes. But one that stands out to me was when I was in Portugal at Benfica, and we were playing like a big rondo like a huge rondo in the semicircle.
Okay.
And there's three guys in the middle, yeah. And basically the guy that loses the ball, the guy to the left of him and to the right of him, going into the middle along with the guy that lost the ball. So there's an added component of like pressure and responsibility on the ball. And I remember like I lost the ball once, and then I lost the ball another time, like in a short period of time. And then a couple of the guys are kind of like, again, this is coming from me being too soft probably, but I like took it to heart. Like one of the guys was like, "Oh, get me away from this guy. This guy's gonna get me in the middle." And like they started shifting around so that like I wouldn't be on to the left or the right of them.
Yeah.
And that shit screwed with my head a lot because like I really started to doubt my abilities, you know? I really did start to doubt my abilities. And I was like, at a tender age too, I was like 17, 18. I was like, you know, this is tough, man. But I had to learn through it. And it wasn't easy. It didn't happen. Like, obviously, that's why probably I had such a non-linear career, is because it did take a long time for me to understand these aspects of it. But yeah, that was one. Another few was like, well, more recently, really going on trial. I'm a grown man at this point. I don't give a crap if somebody yells at me, but just like seeing people, like I said, with different CVs, some people with first league appearances and whatever, and they feel like they can talk down to you, and you're a grown man. You know what I mean? Like, bro, like, who are you? Like, at the end of the day, like, we're both humans, right? If we're talking about, you know, this, that, or the other, I might be better than you. You know what I mean? But because in this hierarchy of things, this is what it is, you think that you can, you know what I mean? So it's like, you have to manage those things. And only now that I've developed that maturity, now you can kind of like just put it under the rug and continue on. But it's tough at those ages, man. Like, that's why whenever I see talented players at a young age, I don't think anything of it, because it's nothing. Talent is nothing, man. Psychology of the game is like way bigger than talent is.
Well, a prime example, look at the failed attempt for the European Super League when you've got Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man U and Man City wanting to leave. At the end of it, yeah, the Premier League is a multi-billion-pound business, which, no disrespect to those clubs, they treat the fans as customers. And what we're trying to achieve is we're putting the community first, we're putting the fans first, whether it be here, whether it be in America. My thought is that football is for the working man. And what I mean by that is, obviously, with the failed attempt for the European Super League, the clubs were just thinking about the money. They weren't thinking about the fans coming through the door. They weren't thinking about a working class individual working all week, looking forward to going watching his or her team at home or in an away stadium. And when you think about it here, obviously England gave soccer to the world, and really we want to sort of enhance that reputation, sort of get everybody thinking again, get everybody understanding what we're trying to do. And obviously, really, football is for the working man, and this is where the community aspects and everything else, such as your mental health benefits, the physical benefits, comes first.
And I've worked with that a lot because I've had a lot of players go into trial, and I actually teach, and I work energetically and in the body and dealing with the ego. The goal is non-attachment. Yeah, okay. And the goal is very Buddhist, like non-attachment. Like the idea is we all, you know, you hear it in sports psychology all the time, control the controllables, right? Like we're going to control what we can control. We're going to let go of what we can't control. Well, that's easier said than done. Right. But the idea is to go in, and I actually use more traditional term, you know, non-attachment. Right? And if we can go in completely surrendered and completely releasing the control over the things that we have no say in, and we can focus all our energies on what we can control, what is right here in front of us, which is the craft of soccer itself. Mm-hmm. If we can do that, then we go into a trial, then we're giving ourselves the best chance possible. But there's I actually teach a surrender to, I call it spirit. People use different terms, God, consciousness, the universe, like whatever term, like, I actually say that I believe that there is something in this universe, and that actually has the power to kind of organize our lives and help us accomplish dreams and manifest those things. And so I teach players about that. Like, we're going to surrender, and we're going to accept that whatever comes is the thing we need. So if we need to not make it, if we need to get cut, like I had a player recently, just a couple of weeks ago, was on trial with an MLS team, and he's a college player that wants to go play pro. And he went, and they, after 2 weeks, played okay, had a little bit of a tough time, did some really good work because it was hard and he got triggered a lot. So he was struggling. There was young parts of him showing up, so he did some really good work, and they told him, hey, we got our eye on you, but you're not quite there yet. But because he was in a state of surrender, he was able to go, okay. So I said, did you get some feedback? He goes, yeah, I got some really good feedback. I'm like, perfect. So we took the gift that was given to us. Now we're going to go, and you have a laboratory called college soccer to go back and do your work yourself, work the internal body and work the external game, and perfect this craft, so that they, at some point, they're going to look and go, we can't ignore him any longer. We have to bring him in. Right? And that's the idea, is that we want to earn everything. We don't want to be given a chance because it's some sort of charity thing. We want to earn it because they can't ignore us, because we're just lighting up in that way. So that non-attachment, it takes a little bit of faith, right? And we have to learn. Surrender is a skill, learning how to surrender and just go, I'm going to let go and just let whatever comes be the thing that comes. I mean, I had this player that's really interesting. He's in MLS currently. Okay. And he's been in the league for 10 years. But he's had a rough go of it over the last 3 or 4 years. Just one team, this team, that team. And then he gets this thing, and he gets this thing, and then the contract, and all these kind of situations. And he texted me just a few months ago. He's a free agent. He's not getting any offers. And he said, you're telling me that everything that comes is for my highest good. I'm like, yep, everything. He goes, okay, well, here's my situation. And he has a situation. I'm not going to describe the whole thing, but for any situation, you look at it and he's like, it's bullshit. He's like, this is bullshit, man. And I'm like, I was okay. And it's a podcast.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good.
He goes, it's bullshit. I go, yeah. I go, that's one way to put it. I go, or this is high level training from the universe that's giving you something to continue to break your ego and put it in its place, to continue to expand your wisdom and the depth of your own healing, to prepare you for the rest of your life when your career is over. That's, or you can, it's bullshit. I go, and you're right. Both are true. But which one's going to benefit you more? Which story is going to benefit you more? And he's like, well, clearly so let's go with that one.
Yeah. I think, it's such a similar environment. Obviously it's a little bit smaller here as a prep school, but, I think that's one of the things that, we speak about with our recruits and our guys is, all the things that you're asked to do here are going to be the things that you're asked to do at the college level, whether it's Division 1, 2, or 3, and that's in the classroom, around the community, and certainly on the field. As players, we talk about our core values in all those different settings, and it's development, excellence, and class. And, I think college coaches want guys that want to get better, that want to develop on in all the different attributes that you bring to the game, on a regular basis. Are you working to get better in the things that, allow you to perform at a higher level? The only way you do that is to pursue excellence. It's not practice makes perfect. It's perfect practice makes perfect, or, there's a lot of different ways to say it, but just going out and going through the motions, or, being on the field or being in the weight room, if you're not pursuing excellence, if you're not pushing yourself to give the best that you can give, then you're not going to get better. You're not going to get more fit. You're not going to get stronger. You're not going to be a better player. And you have to conduct yourself with class. You're a representative of, first and foremost, yourself, but then your family, the program, and the university or the institution. And, these are the things that college coaches want. And I think we provide a unique environment and education in, those values that set guys up for success at the collegiate level, because, you know, you are going to be asked to, you know, work harder and do things differently than you've ever done before. And again, it's not going to always go your way. But if you are focused on the things that you can control, if you have a value system that's allowing you to not only, you know, attack and win the day, but understand that that's how you get to, you know, your short and your long-term goals is one step at a time, then, you know, you're going to be a benefit and a positive member of, you know, whichever program and community you're going to. And I think that, you know, year in and year out, our guys have shown that at the collegiate level with, you know, rookie of the years or stepping into big roles as freshmen, or, you know, player of the year, or part of, you know, championship winning teams, but also in their academic performance and awards, and, you know, the other things that they do around their community and the way that they give back, that, you know, has allowed them to be recognized, and most importantly, allowed them to be, you know, proud of themselves, and for us to be proud of them, whether they're recognized or not, because they're going about, you know, representing themselves and us and, you know, everything that they stand for in the right way.
A little story. So I think Sir Alex Ferguson tells it to his Manchester United players, and it's a story about growth mindset. So he would use this story. I don't know how true it is, but it's still a great story no matter how, you know, it doesn't matter. Don't let the truth guide you away from a good story. Yeah. So he said he was walking with his grandfather in Scotland, and he noticed a cathedral getting built. And there was 3 builders, and they were building on this building site. And he asked his grandfather, "What are those builders doing?" And then one builder replied, "I'm earning £10 an hour." The other builder, the second builder, replied saying, "I'm just digging a hole. You know, I'm turning up on time, but I'm going to leave early. I'm just digging a hole and creating some sort of building for off the plans." The third builder said, "I'm building the biggest cathedral in Central Europe, and I can't wait to show my grandkids this building when it's finished." And I think the story of, you know, the meaning of that story is, which builder are you? Are you that guy who's happy to come in and just kick a ball about without even thinking about the consequences of it? Or are you the second builder and that's coming in because you're conscious about how much money you're getting paid? Or alternatively, are you the third builder and you're the guy that's coming into this environment to build the greatest football team the world's ever seen, or even build yourself as one of the best footballers you can be? It's not about being the world best. It's just about being the best you can be in the world. And you're going to create a team that one day you're going to show your own children you contribute towards. And I think that's really important, is that growth mindset. You know, are you there to pick up the wages? Are you there to kick a ball about and just play football? Are you there to create something magical for yourself? You know, you don't have to be winning the Premier League. You could be winning personal goals as well. Or you could just be playing more. It doesn't really matter what the goal is. You just have to have that growth mindset. And sometimes it is really important. And it's not a straight road. Trust me, straight roads do not make the best drivers. You're always going to have obstacles as a player. You're always going to have pushbacks. And I think, you know, what is good doesn't come easy. And I think that's really important, is that, and sometimes you have to remember, you know, what's good for you doesn't necessarily mean it's easy as well. So I think you have to be really important in that. You have to think about who you are as a person and really get to grips on what you want as a player as well. You know, are you just going to come in and pick up money if you're lucky enough to get paid as a professional football, or are you going to use it and really create that one thing that you're going to be special at? And really, because you got one chance. Those builders are there from 9 till 5, and they're not going to leave early, and they're not going to come in any later. And you're a footballer, you know, you've got a 2-year contract. Your contract lasts 2 years, no matter if you're going to pick up your wages or not. So you might as well make the most of it, because trust me, there might be another juicy one coming up if you're good enough and have that growth mindset. So it's really important, is that if you feel like you're slipping down a little slippery slope, just remember that builder story. Which builder are you going to be today? You know, just ask yourself that every day. And I think there was a funny story where one of the teams in Manchester United in training, they scored and they went, Cathedral Builders 1, money grabbers 0 or something like that. It's quite a funny one. I don't know how true the story is, but I know Sir Alex Ferguson definitely told it anyway. So that was great.
Being with a first team professional club, was that maybe one of the first big breaks kind of in your business or your kind of brand of building yourself up as a coach?
Yeah, well, I think what really helped me, that really, I'd say took me over the top, I don't know if that's the right expression, but that really was like boom moment. I was coaching the A junior, which was the U20 team, and we were playing in the match to go up. You know, we either had to win or had to draw. And for the club, there was lots of, they'd never experienced that. They never had that before. So you had people were there watching. People had never seen the team play. You know, supporters would come and watch. And, you know, we scored early in the match. They equalized. We scored again. They equalized. And the last few minutes was really tense. And, you know, then you start making some tactical changes in a way to kind of negate what the opponent was doing. And we drew, which was enough points for us to go. And that was just like one of those moments like, okay, like the relief I felt was like, wow. And I'm thinking, man, this is like a U20 match. Come on. Yeah. But the next day when I had first team training, I walked into the changing room and all the players applauded, you know, all the staff, you know, same guys are joking around 2 days ago, you know, they didn't know anything about the U20s, but you know, when they saw that we had success, it was like, okay, great. And that was one of the moments that was, for me, it was really good. You know, and I remember that and the celebration with the players in the changing room afterwards. I mean, it really was good because once we did that, I got the opportunity to move to the first team full time the next year. And that next year was really good for me because I was only focusing on that first team and doing the training there with them. And at that time is where I got really confident because I was doing the training. We had, you know, one player who played at the Crystal Palace. We had you know, a couple guys that played in Germany, a guy who played in Eredivisie, who were all Finnish players who went abroad to play, but ended up coming back. And we're working with these guys and they're like, hey man, this is really good training. I like what you're doing. And that gave me the boost and gave me the confidence to say, okay, hey, you can work at this level. And that was like a really big thing for me. What also happened, which was really good, was the guy I was working with, Toke. He was working also for the FA and he was instructing coaching courses. And for the first 2-3 years, I couldn't get into any UEFA courses. I was applying, I was trying to get in and they kept saying, no, you know, like you don't speak the language, you know, various reasons I wasn't allowed in. So he was instructing a B course and he's like, you know, we were talking about it. I was like, man, it's so frustrating. I can't get in. He goes, what? I said, yeah, they're not letting me in. He goes, forget that. I'll put your name on a list. You're in. And it just worked out really well because I got in and did a fantastic job. I passed, you know, was brilliant, but then I was in the system.
Yes.
So they couldn't now say, no, you can't because I've already taken the course. And that was one of the moments that really also gave me the confidence because at the B license, I had already done higher stuff in America, you know, higher courses and higher training than what the B license was, which then said, yeah, man, you could do this. You know, you can work here. And, you know, like I said, that was like year 2 and 3. And that was really, really huge for me. And then after that year at Viking, we had a fantastic year. I progressed and was offered a job at NIPA, which was in Vikosliga, which was the top level. And at that time that year, we were in UEFA Europa League qualifications. So it was really good because now you're doing training with those guys and you're like, hey, this is Europa League. This is pretty good. And for me at that, once I kind of hit that, it was like, yeah, this is where I'm meant to be. This is what I'm meant to be doing, and just kept progressing. But like I said, it was those few moments, I think early on, like I said, that U20s winning the league, that was one that kind of helped. And then that next year when I was training the players and you're getting feedback from them saying, hey, this is really good. You know, like I enjoy what you're doing. And it's not just like a guy who hasn't been around. There was guys that had played at good levels. And it's like, all right, hey, this means a lot to me.
I mean, really, there was so many times in Thailand I should have quit. I went over there again with different culture, different food, different playing style. I'm 3 feet bigger than everybody. Nobody speaks English, and if they do, it's so broken. So I mean, you're a fish out of water there, but there's gold on the table. There's teams there paying $25,000-$30,000 a month to players, and they're giving bonuses. They're giving free first class tickets around the world. It was the most amazing thing I've seen, because if you wanted it, you could have it all there. I know some guys who played 4 or 5 years there, and I'm pretty sure they retired after that. So it was one of those that I was just there looking at it, and I'm just saying, I got to get something from this. I'm not leaving this country until I've made a name and I've made some money. And so my second year was the same situation as Puerto Rico. I went to a team called Air Force, who was, Air Force of Thailand. They were affiliated directly. So the general was the coach, and the co-general was the assistant coach. And we flew Air Force cargo jets to games. It was just such a wild, different team. But they said to me day one, because I got there about the last week of transfer deadline, they said, I'm going to give you $1,000 a month, which I think I was probably making quadruple that the first team I got there. And so they said, we'll give you $1,000. We don't know who you are. You didn't get many games. Take it or leave it. And I had to just do one of those where I just signed. I closed my eyes later, and I said, I'm going to do something about this. I'm so mad. And so probably 3 days in, or 3 games in, I do amazing. I get clean sheets. I'm pretty sure I walked in about 3-4 weeks into the season. I walked in with my contract and I said, I want a whole brand new contract. And they were like, it's only been a month or 2. I said, I don't care. I'm the best goalie in this league, and you know it already. And so you got to pay me. And so I was like, I want double or triple what I'm making. And I'm pretty, it was very quick. It was very quick of like, they said, yes, we got to do this because we see what you can bring and we know we're going to lose you. So there was a little bit of a risk there where because for me, I couldn't play for that amount. I couldn't survive. I couldn't feel like inspired. So I had to get that because I knew what it would do. It would inspire me. And I did that again every 6 months. I went back in there and said, I'm not getting paid what I'm worth. I want this. It's going to make me play better. And I was like, if you give me more for a clean sheet, you're going to get more games that get clean sheets and you're going to get more points. And so there was a lot mixed into that of like, hey, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be pretty sometimes, but can you just go one more day? Can you get something out of this that's like, hey, I'm proud of that. Like you got some games, you got some experience, you survived people telling you to go home. So I think the struggle is something I've always been a little addicted to, was like, this is like the worst day of my life in soccer. How do I turn this situation into the best moment? And maybe it's in this team. Maybe it's in a different team. Maybe it's in a whole different country. But it was always a struggle that I liked to overcome.
One thing that I've always, leaned on my whole life is you have to fail to succeed. Not everything's just going to be handed to you in life. Like, and if you think it's going to be that way, then, you got some tough life lessons coming to you. You got to work for what you get. And, I'd say when you're going through tough times like that mentally, and, you're feeling like you're on that breaking point, you have to lean on your friends and your family 100%. I tried to, when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, I would always try to keep things into myself and not really say much to other people and try to deal with it myself, just go to the gym, work harder. Because that's how I've always dealt with my stuff. But it got to the point where I had to get things off my chest and talk to other people. And like I said, lean on my friends and family. And I think that's what got me back on track in my life to get to where I am now. And, when I went to Buffalo State, I think that's when I really, really pushed myself to become a pro. Because I just, like I call it putting on the horse blinders. I was just like, I don't care what anyone says. I don't care, if I'm at a D3 SUNY school, like I don't care what anyone thinks. I'm going to do this for me and for my family, because what I've been through, not a lot of people have been through. So I just wanted to prove people wrong and prove my family that, when we set this goal and this dream when I was a kid, that we were going to do it together, and we did. So
I I hope you all enjoyed that little trip down memory lane, reminiscing on some of those episodes. Dave Gorrick, Sergio Anton, Seth Taylor, Seyi, just so many good stories. Steve Covino, Mike Keeney. Really hope that you enjoyed some of those. If you liked any of those episodes, all the links will be posted down below to go and check out the full thing. If you liked the little clip or the tidbit that you heard here on the episode. So I would encourage you to go and check out the full episode to get the full context and their full story. There'll be at least one more part, if not two more parts to this. So stay tuned for that. A couple more episodes coming your way with those recaps of the highlights of 2022. I want to thank you all for your listening to this episode and your continued listenership over the course of this year. And since we started the podcast, I appreciate you tremendously, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.